Imagine waking up in a $10 million penthouse. You have the status, the power, and a reputation as the cleanest CFO on Wall Street. But your entire life is a digital illusion. This morning, as you pour your coffee, your wife hands you a single crumpled receipt. She asks a question that stops your heart. Arthur, why did we pay $6 million to a dry cleaner in Delaware that doesn't exist? In the next 20 minutes, we are going to deconstruct a heist that didn't use a single gun, yet stole more money than any bank robbery in American history. Welcome, everyone, to a journey into the dark heart of financial genius and absolute greed. I'm your host, and today we uncover the vibration heist, the greatest mystery of the digital age. Stick around, because the final twist proves the money never truly left.
The year is 1984. Wall Street is the center of the universe. It was the era of greed is good, where young brokers became millionaires overnight. But while everyone was focused on shouting on the trade floor, a quiet revolution was happening in the back offices. Arthur Sterling was the golden boy of Sterling & Thorne Associates. He was the man who convinced old money board members that paper ledgers were obsolete. He brought in the first IBM mainframes, promising absolute digital security. He was hailed as a visionary, but Arthur saw something the board didn't. A computer doesn't just store data, it can be programmed to lie. Behind his charismatic smile lay a mind that viewed every bank account as a lock waiting to be picked by a keyboard.
Arthur developed a secret subroutine he called the Ghost. It was a masterclass in a technique known as salami slicing. In any large transaction, there are fractions of a cent, decimals that people ignore. Arthur's code didn't just ignore them, it vibrated them. Every time $1 million trade happened, the code shaved off the tiny fractions and diverted them to a hidden side account. At first, it was just pennies, but in a firm processing billions daily, those pennies turned into thousands, then millions. He called it a vibration because the movement was so small and fast that the system's security sensors never felt a thing. It was the perfect crime, invisible and infinitely scalable.
Enter Sarah Jenkins. In the male-dominated world of 80s finance, Sarah was a rarity. She was a high-level forensic auditor known as the Bloodhound because she could smell a discrepancy from a mile away. The Federal Reserve sent her to Sterling & Thorne for a routine check. For 2 weeks, Sarah found nothing but perfection. Arthur's books were immaculate. But Sarah had a habit of working until 3 a.m. One Tuesday, she noticed something odd. The mainframe's CPU usage was spiking at 2:45 a.m. every single night. There were no trades happening at that hour. The office was empty. So why was the computer working so hard? She decided to bypass the user interface and look at the raw system logs, the DNA of the machine. As the printer chattered in the dark office, Sarah stared at the numbers in disbelief. Under a boring category labeled Utility Maintenance, there was a recurring weekly transfer of $4.2 million. In finance, utility is a dull word meant for electricity and water. But no office building in New York costs $4 million a week to light up. Sarah realized she wasn't looking at a utility bill. She was looking at a massive hemorrhage. She did the math. 52 weeks, 2 years. We are talking about nearly $500 million that had simply vanished. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She was alone in a building owned by the man who was stealing the world. Sarah knew she couldn't go to her boss. Her boss was Arthur's best friend. As she walked to her car, the silence of the parking garage felt heavy, almost predatory. Every shadow looked like a threat.
She reached her vehicle and stopped dead. Tucked under her windshield wiper was a plain manila envelope. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a printout of her own personal bank statement from that very morning. There, in bold numbers, was a fresh deposit of $50,000. No note was needed. The message was loud and clear. "We know you found us. Now you are one of us." It was a bribe, a trap, and a silent death warrant.
While Sarah sat in her apartment, terrified, Arthur Sterling was at a gala at the Met. He was being honored as a visionary philanthropist. He had just donated $1 million to a children's hospital, money he had vibrated out of the pension funds of hard-working Americans. The irony was sickening. He stood there in a tuxedo, sipping champagne with senators, while his digital ghost was busy draining accounts across the country. Arthur believed he was untouchable. He had created a system so complex that even if someone found it, they could never prove it was him. He was the king of the new digital frontier. But he forgot that even the most perfect code has a human element. Eleanor Sterling was more than just a socialite wife. She was a woman of sharp intelligence who had noticed the subtle changes in her husband. The secret phone calls, the sudden acquisition of properties in countries with no extradition treaties. She had found a hidden safe behind a painting in Arthur's study. Inside wasn't jewelry, but a list of shell companies: Apex Cleaning, Delaware Logistics. She realized her husband wasn't a genius investor, he was a digital pirate, and she knew that when the ship sank, he would leave her behind. Eleanor made a choice that night. She didn't call Arthur, she called the FBI. Eleanor Sterling was more than just a socialite wife. She was a woman of sharp intelligence who had noticed the subtle changes in her husband. The secret phone calls, the sudden acquisition of properties in countries with no extradition treaties. She had found a hidden safe behind a painting in Arthur's study. Inside wasn't jewelry, but a list of shell companies: Apex Cleaning, Delaware Logistics. She realized her husband wasn't a genius investor, he was a digital pirate, and she knew that when the ship sank, he would leave her behind. Eleanor made a choice that night. She didn't call Arthur, she called the FBI. Two women, strangers to each other, became the pillars of the investigation. Sarah provided the technical how, while Eleanor provided the where. The FBI launched Operation Ghostwriter. They realized they weren't dealing with a typical embezzler. Arthur Sterling had created the world's first digital money laundry. He wasn't just taking money, he was breaking it into thousands of tiny pieces, sending them through encrypted vibrations to Swiss accounts and reassembling them as consulting fees. The FBI had to move fast. They had 30 days before Arthur's planned exit to Brazil. The race against the kill switch had officially begun.
Agent Marcus Thorne was the man assigned to lead the chase. He was a veteran of white-collar crime, but Arthur was a new breed. He's not just stealing money, Thorne told his team. He's vibrating it through 1,000 different portals. The trail stretched from the Cayman Islands to Luxembourg, but the clocks were ticking. Arthur had already booked a private flight from Teterboro. The FBI didn't just need a lead, they needed a smoking gun. And that gun was buried deep inside the COBOL code of the IBM mainframe. They needed Sarah to go back in one last time.
For the next 10 days, the FBI ran silent surveillance. They tapped the lines, but Arthur was using high-level encryption that the FBI's current tech couldn't break. He was communicating in code through financial tickers. A certain stock price hit a certain number, and that was a signal to move the money. Thorne realized they weren't chasing a thief, They were chasing a ghost who lived inside the wires. They needed to plant a sniffer program directly into the hardware. It was a suicide mission for Sarah's career and potentially her life. But she agreed. She wanted the vibration to stop.
Sarah entered the server room at 2 a.m. Every second felt like an hour. She had to plant the disc that would record the vibration as it happened. The cold air of the server room bit at her skin. She found the core processor and inserted the disc. 10%, 50%, 90%. Suddenly, the lights in the room flashed on. Arthur's head of security was standing at the door. Sarah froze. She was caught red-handed in the heart of the conspiracy. But the guard didn't call the police. He looked at her and said, "You're too late. He's already moving it."
The guard was a whistleblower too. He had seen the theft, but was too afraid to speak. He helped Sarah finish the download. The data revealed a global web. Arthur was using the stolen millions to fund shadow campaigns and buy influence. He had turned his vibration into a political weapon. This was why no one had caught him. He was the treasurer for a secret power structure. Thorne realized that arresting Arthur Sterling would trigger a scandal that could topple the administration. He was no longer just an FBI agent. He was a man holding a ticking bomb. The hierarchy of power was at stake.
The chase was on. Arthur found out about the breach and ordered his security to intercept Sarah. A high-speed pursuit tore through the narrow alleys of the financial district. Sarah managed to lose them near the Brooklyn Bridge, but she knew her life in New York was over. She met Agent Thorne at a safe house and handed him the disc. "This is the entire map of his empire," she said. Thorne looked at the data and saw the names: senators, judges, CEOs. The vibration didn't just move money, it moved the gears of the country. Arthur had bought the system with its own stolen wealth. The pressure from Washington was immediate. Thorne was told to scale back the investigation. "Don't destroy the system to catch one man," they warned. But Thorne was a man of the old school. He leaked a small portion of the data to the New York Times, forcing the Justice Department's hand. Now that the public knew there was a ghost on Wall Street, there was no going back. The hunt for Arthur Sterling became the #1 news story in the world. The vibration was now a household name, and the architect was starting to sweat for the first time in his life. Arthur watched the chaos with a cold, detached curiosity. He wasn't afraid. He had a kill switch. If he entered a specific 12-digit code into his terminal, every trace of the stolen $450 million would be encrypted with a key that would take 1,000 years to crack. He held the economy hostage. "Tell Thorne to come here," Arthur told his secretary. "We need to negotiate." It was a master manipulator's final move, a game of digital chicken with the U.S. Treasury. He believed he was still the one in control of the narrative. The meeting was a study in contrasts: Thorne, the tired lawman, and Arthur, the polished criminal. "You can have the man, Thorne, but you'll never get the money," Arthur said with a smirk. "Unless you let me walk. Give me 24 hours. It was the ultimate bribe. $450 million for one man's freedom. Thorne looked at the man who had shaken the foundations of trust and realized Arthur didn't think he was a criminal. He thought he was an innovator who was being punished for being too smart. But Thorne had a surprise of his own. The smirk vanished from Arthur's face when Eleanor walked in. She didn't look at him with love, but with cold resolve. "He doesn't have the only key, Agent Thorne," she said. She had found the master ledger in his safe weeks ago. She had the physical proof of the shell companies and the bribes. Arthur's kill switch was useless because Eleanor had the paper trail of where the money had started. The ghost had been betrayed by the one person who knew his human heart. The architect of air was finally out of breath. The arrest of Arthur Sterling was the end of an era.
As he was let out, the vibration finally stopped. The servers were seized, the accounts frozen. But as he passed Thorne, Arthur whispered a final chilling sentence. "The code is already out there, Marcus. You caught the architect, but you can't stop the physics." It was a warning that would haunt Thorne for the rest of his life. The heist was over, but the blueprint for the next generation of digital crime had just been written. Arthur was going to jail, but his ghost was still in the wires. The trial was a sensation. It wasn't just a trial of a man, it was a trial of the new digital age. The prosecution laid out the vibration theory, and for 60 days the world watched as the complexities of COBOL and offshore banking were laid bare. The public was divided. Was he a villain or a visionary who exposed the system's flaws? The jury reached a verdict in record time, guilty on all counts. Arthur was sentenced to 45 years, the longest sentence for a financial crime at the time. But the FBI had one massive problem. They had only recovered half the money. Phase 3 was the Great Recovery. Investigators found that Arthur hadn't just moved money, he had invested it. The $450 million had grown into nearly $600 million through high-speed trades managed by his code. But as they reclaimed the funds, they realized nearly $200 million was gone. It hadn't been spent, it had been moved into a new kind of digital currency that didn't have a name yet. Arthur was decades ahead of the world. The money was vibrating in a new dimension of technology that the FBI didn't even have a department for yet. Sarah Jenkins received a reward, but her career was over. No Wall Street firm would hire the woman who broke the code of silence. She moved to a small town, living under a new name, but she never stopped checking her statements. She knew that a heist of this scale doesn't just end with an arrest. Every time her bank app shows a discrepancy of a few cents, she wonders if Arthur's code is still out there, saying hello. She lived the rest of her life in quiet peace, but she was always a bloodhound waiting for the next ghost. Eleanor Sterling became the star witness of the decade. Her testimony revealed the deep rot inside the elite. The trial resulted in the resignation of 3 senators. She walked away with a divorce settlement and a new life, but she remained a woman of mystery, the only one who truly knew where Arthur had hidden the final key. Some say she kept a portion of the money for herself as a severance package for 20 years of marriage to a ghost. We may never know for sure, but Eleanor Sterling never wanted for anything again. Arthur was a king in prison. He became a legend, a man who could solve any technical problem. He spent his days reading about the emerging internet and cryptography. He knew that the world was moving toward a place where every person would be part of a connected network, a world perfectly designed for a new kind of vibration. He was a prisoner in body, but his mind was still roaming the digital corridors of the world. He knew his time would come again, even if he wasn't the one clicking the keys. In the mid-90s, Agent Thorne noticed a pattern. New types of cyber attacks were being reported, small, invisible vibrations that drained pennies from millions of online accounts. It was Arthur's code evolved. It had been leaked and now being used by hackers globally. Thorne realized that by arresting Arthur, they hadn't stopped the crime, they had released the virus. The vibration heist was the patient zero of the digital age. It was the blueprint for every hack, every data breach, and every digital robbery we see today. Historians debate the true impact of the heist. Some argue that market glitches that caused major crashes were actually remnants of Arthur's subroutines still running in the deep architecture of banking. Like a ghost in the machine, the code would occasionally spike, causing chaos before settling back into the shadows. We live in a world built on trust, but Arthur Sterling proved that trust is just a variable that can be manipulated. He showed us that the system isn't broken, it was built with these cracks already inside.
The missing $200 million became the holy grail of investigators. It moved through the early internet like a shadow. Every few years, a large block would appear in a random account in Singapore, only to disappear again.
It became known as the Sovereign Fund, a pool of untraceable wealth that fueled the rise of the first cyber cartels. The FBI eventually closed the file, but the legend grew. The money was out there, vibrating through the lives of millions, waiting for the architect to come home and claim it. Today, the vibration has many names, micro-skimming or cloud draining, but the DNA is the same. It is the art of stealing so little from so many that no one notices. Arthur Sterling was the pioneer of this digital warfare. In a world where wars are fought with keyboards, his code is the ultimate weapon. It is silent, effective, and everywhere. Every time you see a cent missing from your digital wallet, you are feeling the ripple effect of a man who decided that a decimal point was more important than the truth. What is the true cost of progress? We traded the security of the physical world for the convenience of the digital one. We gave up gold for the speed of the vibration. Arthur Sterling didn't just steal money, he stole our sense of safety. He showed us that in the digital age, everything, even your identity, is just a collection of numbers that can be changed. He was the first to realize that we are all just ghosts in a larger ledger, waiting to be vibrated into someone else's account. The heist never really ended. In 2024, Arthur Sterling was finally released. He walked out with a small bag of belongings into a world he no longer recognized, but one he had helped build. Cash was almost dead. The vibration was now the standard operating procedure for the entire world. He didn't look like a man who had lost 40 years. He looked like a man who had just arrived at the finish line. A black car was waiting for him at the gate. As he drove away, he didn't look back. He was ready to find what was left of his ghost. The final twist, the 200 million he had lost in the early digital ether, he hadn't lost it. He had moved it into the very first experimental digital tokens in the late 80s. Over 40 years, that investment had grown into billions. Arthur Sterling hadn't just won, he had outweighted the world. He was now one of the wealthiest men on the planet, all thanks to a code he wrote before most of us were born. He had successfully vibrated his way into a new reality. The ghost was finally a king. But wealth didn't bring peace. Arthur found that his own codes were now being targeted by him. The ghost he created was now hunting its creator. He spent his final days in a fortress of firewalls, trapped by his own genius. He realized that the vibration is a cycle that never ends. Once you open the door to invisible theft, you can never truly close it. He died in luxury, but in total isolation, a king of a digital world that he helped create but could no longer control. His death was as silent as his heist. The story doesn't end with Arthur. In an attic in a small town, a young boy found an old disc labeled insurance. The data on that disc, the list of the powerful people who took the vibrated money, has never been fully revealed. It is a time bomb. If that data were leaked today, it would spark a revolution. The vibration still has the power to destroy the world as we know it. The legacy of Sarah Jenkins lives on in the hands of a generation that knows how to fight back against the ghosts in the machine. We are moving into a future where the lines between physical and digital are blurring. We are becoming the code. Our memories, our money, our lives are all becoming part of the vibration. We must ask ourselves, who is writing the subroutines for our future? Are we building a world based on truth, or are we just creating a bigger ledger for the next great heist? The vibration heist was a warning. It showed us that the most dangerous weapon is the one you can't see, and the most dangerous thief is the one you trust. What if we could go back? What if we could close the door Arthur Sterling opened? But history only moves forward. The vibration is part of our reality now. We must learn to live with the ghosts.
We must listen to the background noise of our lives and look for the discrepancies, because the next heist won't be for $450 million. It will be for everything. The next vibration is already happening, right now as you watch this. Can you feel it? Or are you just ignoring the cents while the dollars disappear? Money is no longer a thing. It is an idea, and ideas are vulnerable. Arthur Sterling knew that before anyone else. He knew that the value of anything is just what a computer says it is. When we lost the connection to physical wealth, we lost our grip on reality. The vibration heist was the moment the world became a simulation where the people who control the vibration control the world. It is a sobering thought, but one that we must confront if we are to survive the digital age. Look at our world, a glowing web of transactions, communications, and data. It is beautiful and terrifying. It is a masterpiece of human ingenuity, but it is also a playground for the predatory mind. The vibration is the pulse of this world. We are all part of the heist, whether we like it or not. We are all vibrating through life, leaving a digital trail that will last forever. Make sure your trail is one of truth, not of greed, because in the end, the ghost always comes for the architect. Every story has a moral, and the moral of the vibration heist is simple. The smallest details matter. A few cents can change the world. A single line of code can topple a government. A brave woman with a disc can stop a billionaire. Never underestimate the power of the individual to change the system. Whether you're an auditor or just someone watching this, you have the power to listen for the vibration and demand the truth. The ghost only wins if we stay silent. What will you do the next time you see a discrepancy? Thank you for joining us on this 22-minute journey into the world's most mysterious heist. The vibration is a story that never truly ends. It lives in every transaction. We want to hear from you. If you found a mysterious deposit in your account today, what would you do? And what kind of stories do you want to see next? More financial crimes, unsolved mysteries, or dark web secrets? Let us know in the comments. We read every single one. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and always check the cents. Goodbye for now, and take care.